Today we are snorkeling the brand new 2025 P520. What I've gone ahead and done is take the bed off completely. All it is this piston here, which you can either take the top or bottom off. I just took the top off, figured it'd be easier. It's a 12mm nut on that, and then two of these bolts. I guess they're kind of like through bolts, but not exactly. It's 12mm on both sides. I loosened the nut up and then tapped it with a hammer instead of tapping the threads. That way you don't get your threads all gobbed up. But this is what they look like. I basically just loosened them to about right there and tap the nut to push them out a little bit. I'll probably end up putting a little bit of grease on those just so the bed doesn't end up getting sticky over time riding and whatnot. Probably not a bad idea. It's kind of looking in here. This is what the Airbox looks like. A little bit different than previous years. Anyway, back to what I was saying. The Airbox intake looks a little bit different on this one. Looks a little bit smaller than older models, and instead of coming out of the top right here, it comes out of the front, which I think is going to be better. Maybe it's just like that on the P5s. I'm not really sure. There's not many videos on P520s, so that's kind of why I'm making some. But what I'm gonna end up doing is taking this Airbox completely out and resealing kind of like the edges where stuff goes in. The Honda sealant, I don't know. I don't really trust it. I kind of only trust my own work, so I'm gonna end up taking this Airbox out. I think some of this extra plastic has to come up, which I'm hoping it doesn't get in the way, but if it does, I'll just cut as minimal as possible. Like I said, I like stuff to look factory. I'm not really sure what that kind of stuff is for. I'm not completely sure, but looks like this panel's gonna come off. The original intake's coming off. Maybe this panel and this right here. This looks like a couple of 12mm bolts. No, they might be 10s. The Airbox does have a heat shield on it, so that's nice. But I'm basically looking inwards, looking out from the inside. That's what I'm gonna be sealing, like the sensor right there and the other things like that. I'll probably put a loop in this crankcase as well, so I had to go get some coolant hose or whatnot. And then I don't know if there's a drain on this. I think there is. Yep, there is one. I don't know if you can see it. You can just barely see it right there. It's exactly like the Foreman drain. I know older P5s had the red tube that kind of shot out. What I'll do is I'll probably extend that to somewhere that I can reach, maybe like right behind the diff or down this side, maybe just somewhere I can reach to check it whenever I'm riding, because I do check it a lot. I really don't want a sunk machine. Proud to say my four-wheeler's never been sunk, so what I'm going to do is take this Airbox off. So what I've done here is I've taken this piece off, and this piece is almost off. Not really sure how this one's gonna come out, but there's clips here, there's one here, one back here, and then a few more down the side of the cage and whatnot. Basically, you can either use one of the tools or pop them up with a flathead. And then some of them actually on the frame are designed a little different. They're designed like this, where they push in, and once they're pushed in, they're pushed in. So what you got to do to get them out, not really too sure exactly how you're supposed to get them out, but what I did is I just pushed the top of them, the center of them through. So I'm probably going to have some of these left over that I can just reuse, because I doubt that shroud's going to go back on. If it does go back on, I can just go buy some, but I think this is the factory intake right here. It looks pretty well designed to keep stuff out of it. But I'm gonna go ahead and take it off, and then hopefully take this piece off, and then we can get the airbox to lift it out. So you can go ahead and do that. Got all the plastic pieces pulled off. Wasn't too difficult. It's kind of a little bit of finagling, but we can see everything now. What I've done is take these two 10mm off. I pulled the airbox side of the crankcase breather hose off. I have unplugged that plug for whatever sensor that is. Getting to the intake screw right there was kind of difficult. I ended up using just a stubby screwdriver. Still wasn't that great, but got to it, and now we're just gonna slip this off of the injector here and pull it out, and we'll be able to start getting that underway. There's also a breather hose right here that I didn't see, so you can just disconnect that right there, and then the airbox pulls out completely. So it's just kind of a better look. Right there is where we're gonna add our extension, so we can just do like a quick drain kind of thing. And you see that kind of Honda stuff they use already doesn't look good, and this machine was built a week ago. Just about a week ago. I mean, it's September of 24, and we're in the second week of September, so we're gonna pull these off. They come off pretty easy. I'll probably kind of take a heat gun and maybe heat the glue up just a hair to pull them off. It's real important to pay attention to the angles that you got here, which they should only go in one way because of the little alignment things, but you know, just some things to kind of pay attention for. This airbox is a little different than my Foreman airbox. My Foreman airbox had another piece coming out the back here for a secondary kind of, I don't even know what the purpose of it was, but what I did was cut that trash can out to seal it. Looking in here, it's I like how kind of open it is. We're gonna pull off every single electrical component we can get to and shoot a little bit of dielectric grease in it while it's still fresh and brand new and clean. Because I don't know if you've ever worked with old plugs that are caked up with mud and never had a pressure washer get to them. They are a pain in the butt. So I'm gonna dielectric grease everything, shove a paper towel in that intake hole. I mean, nothing should get up in there because we're working in a garage, but you never know, so I'd rather be safe than sorry. Picking back up where I left off, I got every single plug dielectric grease that I could find anyway. I ended up pulling the seat back off and the seat trays just so I could get to the fuel tank, which I had to get in here anyway to snorkel it, such as the water pump line and whatnot. So I went ahead and pulled the entire seat off. It's just clips are on the outside and then like 2 or 3 screws on each one. Did the passenger and then the driver's side. This box right here, I'm sure there's electrical stuff in it, and from the factory they over tighten this way too much. I'm gonna have to figure out how to get that off. Either cut it, or I don't want to use heat because it's gonna melt the plastic, so I'll probably just cut it or drill it off or something, and then put a zip tie back in its place. That way if I have to get to it, I can. I was looking down here as well. I'm not sure what this is for. I'm gonna do some research and try to figure it out, but it looks like everything right now is just kind of vented in the cage, such as that. I think that's, honestly, I got no idea what that is, so I'm gonna do some research and see. But just like the diff line, I mean, it was vented to the cage. That's vented to the cage. I saw something else up front, maybe that was vented to the cage. Not sure. Oh yeah, right here. Looks like the diff, the front diff, that's that vent. I also dielectric greased everything up here. There's some stuff under the seat, like the seat belt alarm and whatnot. There's a plug at the bottom of the motor down there. And that's basically it for dielectric grease. So what I'm gonna do now is probably run the vent lines. Try to find where all the vent lines are. On the Honda Foreman, there's 7 of them, so I'm sure there's 7, if not more, on this. I don't know if I'll run all 7 to the top of the cage or how I'm gonna do it yet. Yeah, I'll probably just drill a hole in the cage somewhere and run them up. It's probably gonna be the best thing to do for it. That way it keeps them hidden. I might maybe just go up the snorkel with them. I'm kind of opposed to that idea right now, but we'll see how everything goes. I think this is the gas tank vent right here. And it's going in this box, so I'm gonna have to figure out what this box is as well. But we're gonna do some research, and once I know something, I will let y'all know. So here's what I've done, and here's what I'm about to do. I've gone ahead and put a 1/4 inch to a 1/4 inch barb from the fan vent on the radiator. I've done that. Now I went ahead and went to the store and got this stuff for the diff lines for the front and the rear. So what I'm gonna do is run them to the middle, right under the seat kinda, and probably come up that side with the rest of everything. I'm gonna tee them with this tee. So they're gonna come in and then go up the tee. So that reduces one of the vent lines that is gonna come up. So it's gonna go in that tee right there and shoot up. Here is the hose for that. And then what I've also done is looked at the airbox, and the drain plug is nearly impossible to get to. Excuse me. Pretty much impossible to get to. I mean, you could reach your hand up in here and finagle with it, but instead of doing that, I'm gonna put this on it. And this is basically just like a quick release open thing. That's what I'm gonna call it, the quick release open thing. Seen it on a couple of Kyle Collins videos. I don't know if I'm gonna come out of this side because I feel like it might get caught on something. So what I might do is let it lay right here under kind of the, I'm at a loss for words. Some call it an axle. I know that's not what it's called, but drive shaft, maybe. Anyway, I'll probably let it just sit right here, and I've gone ahead and drilled a hole in the bottom so I can zip tie it to the skid plate right there. That way it's not coming up into the drive shaft. And that way, if I ever want to check it, it's a lot easier to check it rather than trying to finagle getting my hand up in there. But everything's still out. So still in the process of running vent lines here. I do want to figure what this is, and I do want to get this off and dielectric grease whatever's in there. Still haven't done that. So my main focus right now is the vent lines. I'm gonna run them under everything, come out right here. Like I said, I'm gonna tee that one up, and then for the water pump, this is the water pump one I've already ran. I'm gonna run this with the diff lines, run under everything, and I'll probably tee this and that too. Probably shouldn't, but there really shouldn't be anything coming out of the water pump. I mean, sometimes there's barely a drop, like my little drop of spits in there, but I'll probably just tee it off kind of high, maybe like right here. That way it's not getting into the water pump water if it is going bad or whatever. But even then, I mean, it's going to the very front of the machine, so I doubt it's going to reach that fan before it does anything bad to it. And all that's doing is kind of reducing what we have coming up. So we're going to have this one coming up. We're going to have a 3/16 coming up, and then we're going to have a 3/8 coming up. So this box right here, for now, what I'm going to do is run this hose out kind of to where it was before And right here, instead of just this billow, I'm gonna call it, up into the cage, I got a reducing coupling splicer, whatever, and I'm gonna run the factory end into that, and then a 3/8 inch hose that's right here. It says 5/16. Should be 3/8. I guess I should have looked at that. Picked it up out of the wrong pile, I guess, but basically gonna run that up to the top of the machine as well. So we're gonna have the fan and the water pump coming up. We're gonna have the fuel system. I call it fuel system because there's just so much stuff going on. Like on the 4-wheeler, it's just this wire that's vented, or this hose that's vented, but in this case it comes around to this box and there's lines going in and out, and a sensor that comes here, and more lines that shoot out up into the injector. So not really sure about that. Hopefully what we can do here is, like I said, just run that one up. So I'm gonna have to run back to Lowe's and swap this out. And I've also got this RTV. That's what we're gonna seal the box up with. I haven't pulled off that stuff yet because, like I said, my main focus is just the vent lines right now. And then this piece of hose is for the crankcase loop. This is 4 feet of 15-30 seconds, just like water hose. And I got this instead of the clear hose because it's heat resistant, and it kind of just sits right under the exhaust. And I've had it melt on the 4-wheeler before, but luckily it sealed itself before it took water on. I was very, very fortunate and lucky for that to happen. But probably do what I got here, run this. Actually I'm gonna do that last because the airbox sitting in. But probably run all these other vent lines. I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and then we'll see where we go from there. So what I'm about to do is take this metal coat hanger, since I didn't have a fish tape laying around anymore, and I'm gonna run it as close to that coolant line as I can, the feed hose. As you can see, it comes out right down there. Right there. So I'm gonna run it as close to that as I can get it. Hopefully make it over there, and then we can pull our stuff back with this. I think what I'm gonna do for that vent line, is take the original one, which is right here, and I'm gonna run a 3/8 to 1/2 inch splice. I don't know where it went. It was in this bag. But anyway, I'm gonna run that splice from this to a 3/8 hose. Actually, it's right here. And run that up. So what's gonna end up coming up is the T. So that's the bottom of the water pump. This is the coolant fan, and I did it like that. So if the water pump does go out, it won't be shooting directly into it if it was pointed down, say, that way. So I aim this up, and to make sure it stays up, I put a zip tie right there. And then this one is the front diff. I'm gonna run the rear diff, and I'm also gonna run a T probably right here and just hook them up together. And after I do that, that one's getting ran up with the same line, and then this one, the gas system, will be coming up with the same line. So we'll have 3 lines coming up to the top of the snorkel. I'd really like to put them in the cage, but I don't think I'm going to mess with that quite right now. I can always do that later. I just want to get it up and going for now. The way I'm going to do the snorkel is come up behind the seat right here and then shoot straight out, and probably come out to about right here and then go straight up, because what I want to end up doing is getting a piece of plexiglass or something and glassing in this backside, rather than getting a windshield. I think plexiglass might be cheaper. If I do get a windshield, it's just going to have to get cut so the pipe can go through it. And I would have to do that before I do the snorkel. So we're not going to do that. What we're going to do instead is just, how I said it before, and hopefully it works. I think for the time being, I probably won't have a back blast, but I want to get one in eventually, so that's how we're going to do it. Anyways, I'm going to get these rest of the lines ran, let the airbox dry out, and get back to y'all. Alright guys, so got all the vent lines done exactly how I said I was going to. Got the water pump down there. That one comes up into a 1/4 inch T. So that's 1/4 inch hose, inner diameter to a 1/4 inch T. And the T is connected to that top hose right there. That top hose runs up front with the bottom hose. The top hose is that barb right there, and that's a 3/16 inner diameter hose to a 3/16 barb. That one is for the front diff, and then that bigger clear tube, that's the 1/4 inch tube. It's right here. That is the fan. And the way I looked at it is if the water pump fails, I don't think it's gonna push out enough water to go to the fan that far. I mean, it might, but I haven't seen the water pump fail on my 4-wheeler, and it's got 250 hours on it, so I'm not too worried about that. I also could have taken it a step further, and instead of that second tee with another hose coming up, I could have just teed it out of that again, but that runs to the diffs, and they're a little bit lower, so I just figured that if it did go out, the diffs probably would be affected by it. So what I did was I ran that clear tube right there. That one's to the back, and the clear tube to the front. The one I just showed you, that runs to a T. And that goes from 3/16 to 1/4 inch. So it matches that other hose. Both of those hoses run up. And then what I did here for the gas thing, I'm not entirely sure what this is. What I'm gonna do is try to get in touch with Honda and see. I might just end up siliconing around the edges of that box. I believe it is water resistant, waterproof. I'm not sure. It looks pretty tight. But what I did was I just ran a reducer, 1/2 inch to 3/8 or something, and then ran that up. I didn't want to do it too big. It'd look goofy. So I ran the reducer and did it that way. Just kind of tucked it back. Originally it went up into that piece right there, but yeah, this is what we got going on. That's the piece with the green on the bottom. You would normally just vent, but that's not the case on this one. That runs into that box that I was telling you about right there. See if I can get a good angle here. It runs in right there, the one closest to us. And there's a couple other little hoses there. Not entirely sure what the deal is with all of them, but all the rest of them go to something else. So I figure the 1/2 inch is probably just like a vent. That's 1/2 inch inner diameter. But all of them run up, and what I'm gonna end up doing is waiting to actually place them until I put the snorkel in. So on the sound bar here is actually how I'm gonna mount the snorkel. I stole the extra brackets from my brother's since his doesn't work. And I'm gonna end up fabbing something up to kind of connect the snorkel right there. Because there's not really a good spot too on this roof. And the pipe should be pretty substantial, so that's gonna be just kind of extra support for it. But we're pretty much ready to start the snorkel now. Everything's dielectric greased. All the vent lines have been ran. Spark plug boot is greased. Anything I could find as a connector got greased from the ground up on it. That O2 sensor we're gonna end up taking out eventually and putting a Vessel O2 sensor in it. Haven't ordered that yet. Probably should go ahead and do that. And there is the piece for the bottom of the airbox. And we're waiting to put that in. So what I'm gonna do now is probably put all the seats back right here and get the seat back on. That way I know exactly where the snorkel can be and not be. I think once it comes over top of that bar, it'll be all right. But as of right now, I want to get most of what I know will be in the way back on. So I'll go ahead and do that. Also, when you're doing this, be real careful on those connectors right there. That is to like the main ECU, I think it's called. I don't know, but don't drop the box that unplugs from that. Be very careful unplugging that one. But yeah, so I might pull that off first and see if I can put some silicone around it. But after I put it back together about halfway, we're gonna call it a night. Wait on this box to dry here. It's looking pretty good so far. You know, I said I like my stuff to look pretty factory. It looks pretty good to me anyway. And once that goes back in, I don't want to do it while it's wet, so it shifts around. I want to wait till it's dry. We're going to put the coolant hose on for the crankcase breather and that drain hose, and we'll be ready to start the snorkel. So what I'm doing now is sealing the airbox. So it's got a little rubber grommet here, goes in like that, and that's what the sensor goes into. You want to be real careful with that sensor not to damage it. And then you have your intake hole and your hole that goes to the injector, the fuel pump, whatever. This one you push through, and this one you pull out. And what I'm gonna do now is take some 220 and scuff around the edges. Lots of people don't do this, but I'm real particular about it. My airbox on my four-wheeler, dust comes out of it. That's how sealed it is. So I'm gonna do 220 and then I think 320, just to kind of seal it up better. And then I'm going to silicone it all and seal it up. So what I've done here is sanded. I only use 220, but sand the inside and the outside, just kind of right around the edge. That way you get a good seal on your silicone. So you pull all the glue and sand it. Some of the glue won't come off, like you can see just a little section right there, but I just sand it outside a little more. And then the glue that comes off of these is a lot harder to get off, but same thing, you just kind of peel it off as you can and go slow with it. And then I alcohol wiped all this and these where they're gonna go up around it. So I'm gonna let the alcohol kind of dry, put it on kind of heavy, so it'll dry out in just a minute. And then I'll start siliconing around here on all three of them. But on this one, you want to be careful not to gob it up too much so the plug fits inside of this still. All right, I got it all sealed up. I used about 2 tubes of this black adhesive silicone RTV. Anyway, outsides are done on all three, and the inside. And you just want to make sure like you don't get any of the silicone around the seams or whatnot. That one doesn't really matter, but that one and that one, this is what the air filter goes on, and that plug has to go in there. And once we get ready to put it in, we'll take the plug and just put a tiny bead of silicone right there and plug it in. Just, you want to make sure you don't get any silicone on the top of this, so you'll be real careful putting that in, and that way it's extremely sealed right there. And you won't have any issues with water getting in the airbox from these 3 holes anyway. So I went ahead and put the Quickdrain on. It's a foot of clear pipe. I want to say it's a 5/8 ID to 5/8 NPT fitting to the valve. All this is dried up. We're on the next day, so what I'm gonna do is drop it between the brake line right there and then go under. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. All right, so here's what we got for the snorkel setup. It's actually pretty simple. We've got a reducer, well, really an expander. It's an 1.5 to 2 inch ABS piece, and then the white piece is a street 45. So what that means is one end is tapered to receive pipe and one end goes in pipe. And then we have a short piece, I'll get those measurements after this, a vent 90 to another short piece to a, I believe a 22.5 to a short piece of pipe inside a 2 inch coupling and then another street 45, and then the snorkel. So with this setup, it stays as tucked as possible, but it is gonna be out just a little bit because of the roof. It's only kind of hard to avoid not sticking out just a hair. I am gonna trim this up so I can put just a little bit of it on anyway, at least half of it. That way when you're looking in from the side, you're not seeing a whole bunch of stuff. Not that it really matters, but let the bed down here so y'all can see. Got plenty of clearance right there, not gonna take it off if someone doesn't know, something like that. So what I'm gonna do is mark all the pipes and make sure they're good to seal, and then go ahead and use some medium black ABS cement right here and seal them up. I don't know if that's the height. I mean, that looks like pretty good height. I might just go a hair higher because might as well. I kind of like that. I think it looks good, but I might just go a little bit higher. So I'll go ahead and mark all these and then get them straightened out. All right, this is the final product as far as Airbox to, ouch. I just whoop my head on that. As far as Airbox to about right there where the roll cage comes to the bed. That's what this piece is. Goes in just like this. Alright, and then it'll push down in there. And this will obviously be straight like that. But that's that piece. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do now, just as like an extra safety, because some of these joints aren't completely pushed up like they're meant to be. I'm gonna take that black silicone and run a bead around every edge of this. I'm gonna scuff it up just a little bit and run a bead around it. Let that dry overnight and then come back and paint it all one time. That way it just looks nice and fresh. You know, there's glue marks and whatnot, so sand it all down one time and silicone it and paint it up. Push it in there tomorrow morning. And then I'll get that riser pipe on. And then the snorkel will be done. I'll just have to run the airlines up the back of it or the side of it or whatever. And get the bed put back on right. And she'll be snorkeled. I'll probably cut that shroud out to fit the driver's side. Probably won't mess with the passenger side. But, yep. Alright guys, the next day, here's the final product. So what we have here is 1.5 to 2 inch coupling to a street 45, to a 10 1/4 inch pipe, to a vent 90, to an 8.5 inch pipe, to a 22.5 coupling, to a 2 inch to 2 inch coupling, just to kind of give it some more length, and then another street 45. And the way this goes in is just like this. Goes through, and then it'll sit like that right there. Comes up, and then you just add however tall you want your riser pipe. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it in, get everything tidied back up, and then run the vent lines up with it. I'll probably just run the vent lines behind right here and then up the side. That way they're with the snorkel and not all goofy, but not quite sure how tall I'm gonna make it yet. I'll probably just go level with the roof. Right there. I don't want it sticking above the roof in case trees or something sliding on the roof, but I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. Got the final product here. This is what it looks like. We got that piece coming out the box that I showed y'all with all the measurements. And then right here is where we added the riser pipe. So I want it just about level with the roof. I think it may be just a hair taller. Just a hair. But that's where I want it. I'm gonna go back now and just like I did the rest of the joints, I'm gonna silicone right here. So I'm gonna cut that zip tie off and run a bead of silicone just as like an extra precaution. I really, I go for dust in the airbox, not water. So then I ran the vent lines up back, up the side, through the back, up the side. I like the way it looks. And then I just tuck my extra into the pipe because sometimes the pipes or the lines will shrink just a little from the sun. I don't want them pointing straight up, so I'm gonna let them sit like that until they shrink up some, and I guess go ahead and put everything back together. So for more videos, y'all stay tuned. I got a bunch of stuff happening up here. Wheels lift, stuff like that. Looks goofy right now, but gotta trust the process. I want this thing ready before I ride it. So, last step to the snorkel process is seal your airbox lid. Some people silicone them, but I don't like doing that because you might rip it up, like rip the box, getting it off. So what I do is just dielectric grease has worked just fine for me, and just get a good seal around it. And I mean, you can't use too much, I guess, unless you want to make a mess, but basically just put it on. Now it's on and all sealed up. So anyway, I just did the totals on all the snorkel stuff, so I figured I'd let y'all know exactly how much everything was. I broke it down. I'll flip it around here in a second and show you. But it's really not super cheap, but it's cheaper than buying a kit. And there's only one kit, I think by 22 Off-Road maybe, that has a snorkel kit for a P520 because it's kind of an awkward machine to snorkel, but I figured it out and I figured I'd let y'all guys know. So let me flip this around, I'll show you. Here's the complete list. You can pause it if you like. I'm gonna go ahead and break it down. Up here we have the snorkel pipe and all the couplings. So those are all your things. You have a 2-inch by 5-foot piece of black ABS pipe. You could get just regular PVC, but I got the black. So when it scratches up, you're not gonna be able to tell as easy. 2 Street 45 2-inch couplings, a 22.5-degree 2-inch coupling, 1 regular 2-inch coupling, 1.5 inches to a 2-inch coupling. All of these things right here, and 2 Vent 92-inch couplings. You need 2 of those. So all of these things are ABS couplings, except for the Street 45s. So I sanded those and painted them, but that's all the snorkel pipe and couplings. And then we have the vent line and barbs. When you go out and get the barbs, go to AutoZone. They have a pack of them. I ended up spending a little more money, but this pack has everything you need. It's a lot cheaper than the brass barbs you can get at Lowe's. Figured that out real quick. I ended up returning all the brass barbs after I found that, but you need a 3/4 to a 1/2 inch barb for the gas vent, a 1/4 inch barb for the fan vent, a quarter T barb, that is for where the water pump and the fan connect and go up. You need 2 3/16 barbs, that's for the diffs. Those are gonna be real tight fit, but make it work. And then 3/16 by 3/16 for the diffs come together to 1/4 T, and the 1/4 inch is what goes up. You need 20 foot of 1/4 inch ID clear tube. That's for, like I said, the water pump and the fan. 10 foot of the 3/16 ID clear tube, basically runs front and back of the machine for the diff lines, and then the 1/4 inch will run up, so that's why I get 20 foot of that. And then 10 foot of 3/8 ID clear tube. That is for the gas vent, so that's what this 3/4 to 1/2 inch barb is for. And this is a real tight fitting barb because that's 3/8 ID, which is smaller than a 1/2 inch, but I wanted it real tight, so I did 3/8 pipe with 1/2 inch barb. So that's vent lines and barbs. And the total for the parts for the snorkel, not including some of the shop supplies, is $79.84. I went through 4 tubes of the Permatex black silicone, 3 for the airbox and the snorkel, and 1 for the screen. So we can add $30 to that total. That's about $110. I used 2 tubes of it for the airbox, and then really about 1.5 tubes, and then 1 tube, about 1/2 tube really, for the pipe on the snorkel. So you could probably get away with 2 for the airbox and snorkel, but I use a lot of it, so I just put 3 just as a safety. So say about $100 right now. And then the medium black ABS cement, that's about $8. Now I have a lot of this stuff just sitting around from previous snorkels, so I didn't have to buy that. And then I bought a can of paint, that was $15 almost. And then the dielectric grease that comes in the big tube. That's a lot better than what comes in the little squeeze tubes, because you can put it in your airbox a lot easier. So it's a little more expensive, $17, but you go through it a lot, and that's for the whole machine. So for all the dielectric grease, the paint, the cement, the silicone, all that kind of stuff comes out to $79.52. If you subtract $10 from that, which would be the 1 tube of silicone for the screen, that would really go down here somewhere. But about 80 bucks there too. And then this is for the Airbox Quickdrain. You got 1 foot of the 5/8 ID clear hose. I got that from the hardware store because you can get it by the foot. And then 3/4 to 1/2 inch barb to NPT fitting. What that is a barb that goes in the tube and then threads on the other end. So those threads go into that 1/2 inch ball valve. So all that stuff comes out to $817. That's just a convenience thing. You don't have to spend that, but I did. And then this last thing is for the crankcase mod. So I got 4 foot of the 15/32 crankcase heater hose. Got that from AutoZone, and they sell that by the foot. That was $11.96. So this is all pre-tax totals. So all this stuff here, most of it's from Lowe's. The only thing that's not from Lowe's, like I said, is the barbs. That's where that price comes in, the $8 down. Pretty much all this is at Lowe's except for the barbs. And then all right here, you can get the silicone from either Lowe's or AutoZone. I just get it from AutoZone. ABS cement comes from Lowe's. Paint from Lowe's. Dielectric grease, that's AutoZone. And then the foot of clear hose, the barb, and the ball valve all came from Ace Hardware. And then, like I said, that's from AutoZone as well. The one thing that's not on this page is the hose clamp for the screen seal. I'll have another video for that. But like I said, one of those tubes went to the screen seal, that's $10, and the little clamp or whatever was probably just a couple bucks, but I have one laying around. So here's the total for everything you need to kind of bulletproof your machine for the water or the mud. So we got 80, 160, and then we'll just say 20 here. So about $180 plus or minus a few, probably 200 to be safe, to get your machine snorkeled, the screen sealed, the quick drain on it, and all the vent lines and whatnot, all the plugs, dielectric grease, stuff like that. So a little bit less than $200 can get you all this. Probably plus or minus a few dollars. I went through the receipts, but like I said, this is pretty close to accurate. But I got some videos from Riverneck this past weekend. It was their charity weekend, so me and Harrison went out to ride, and I got pretty deep. I'll throw up one little clip, but I'm gonna have a separate video for the first ride. There's not too much of me riding from outer view. It's just kind of inside me recording. We didn't have much help. We had a couple machines there. We had Harrison's four-wheeler, mine, but came off the trailer and never got rode. And then pretty much just rode the side-by-side all day. Tore an axle boot already. Probably gonna have to buy a new axle just to be safe before Busco, but that wraps up this video. We're leaving the old canned ham behind. Submarine. The old P520 getting it. Getting it. We got Sloan over here.
Hey, I'm gonna come pick me up in the trailer.
We got Sloan. We got a bed full of water in the back. Hey Sloan, how deep is it, man? Can't touch. I ain't going through that.
I'm gonna go leave. I'm gonna go drop my
Alright. We hit a couple holes here. As you can see in the quick drain, right there ain't no water in the top of it. I don't see none in the bottom of it either, so that's good. Snorkel sealed. The old P520 Trooper. All the vent lines seem to be working right. Everything's good, man.